In this example, I am asked to take this quadratic function and find the vertex, max or min value, and then the range and the intervals where the function increases and decreases. To be able to do this, I would like to create a sketch of my function. This particular problem will not be on the calculator portion of the test, and so we can't just type it in our calculator and find the information from there. We have to do it by hand. That being the case, I know that I need to get my quadratic function into the proper form. So I'm going to start by separating the x terms from the constant term. Now in this example, notice that there's an understood -1 in front of x squared. Anytime there's a number other than 1 in front of x squared, that value must be factored out of the squared term and the x term. So I will factor a -1 out. That will leave me with a positive x squared minus 4x. Go ahead and leave a little space and then write your -8 outside. Now I need to do the scratch work for completing the square. The scratch work on completing the square says that once I have an understood 1 in front of x squared, I have to take a half of the term in front of x. So I'm going to take a half and multiply by -4, and then when I'm done, I must square that. Well, a half of -4 is -2, and then -2 squared is 4. The trick with this is when you have to factor a value out, when you come to the inside to add that value, you're actually adding the value multiplied by whatever value you have in the front. And so when I come to take it away from the -8, I have to take away 4, but I have to multiply it by the value that was in the front. So -4 times -1. I'm going to separate this a little bit. I've gotten my work jumbled a little bit there. Alright, from here, copy down. I need to factor what's inside the group. I'll do that with an x and an x. Remember, the other factor comes from here, -2 and -2. And then I can do some combining and simplifying of signs. This will be a -8 plus 4, and then I can combine on the next step. So this will be a -1, and then x minus 2 squared, and the -8 plus 4 would be -4. So now I have my quadratic in the correct form to be able to answer different types of questions. First of all, notice that the value in front of my group that is squared is negative. So that means that my graph opens down. Well, if my graph opens down, that must mean that I have a maximum. And the maximum will be at y equals the k value, -4. Alright, from here I also know that I would have an axis of symmetry at x equals this value here. And it actually needs to be the opposite of that value, so it would be x equals 2. And then I know that my vertex is the ordered pair. Take the opposite here, +2, keep the sign here, that would be -4. Now that we have this information, let's go ahead and sketch the graph, and then we can answer the remaining questions. Let's plot the vertex first. So we go over 1, 2, down 1, 2, 3, 4, plot the point. We know that the graph opens down, so we can just sketch our graph. And then we'll go back up and look at what the question had originally asked. It said find the vertex, which we have. We know that we have a maximum. We have that. And then it also wanted the answer for the range, and then the intervals where the function increases and decreases. So those are the remaining parts that we need to find. Well, for the range, we know that we look on the y-axis. this parabola goes down forever. And so the range would be negative infinity, and then we notice that it stops here at negative 4. So it would be negative 4, and you would include that because that's your vertex. So the range would be negative infinity to negative 4. Okay, talking about increasing and decreasing behavior, that has to do with x values. We notice that on this side of our function's increasing. In other words, it's going upward. So our function is increasing on the interval, started on the x-axis, negative infinity, all the way until you get to 2. Remember that increasing and decreasing intervals are always open, so negative infinity to 2, both open parentheses. And then you would be decreasing, or going downhill, on the other side of your graph. So that would be from 2 to positive infinity along our x-axis.